in a way, the grace of a human life is to come to the deepest possible openness and purity and knowing of the purity that is divine, so that when the body drops, that we can drop the body without fear, and we can just surrender the body with the song of the divine on our lips with the last breath, right? If the last breath is God, it's like what is animating us, the eternal life, is the divine, right? It's what we are in truth. We're not the body, we're not the mind. It's that is animating us. Our purpose in our human life is to know that, to know the eternal divine, to know that this bag of bones and flesh is being animated by God. And when God stops animating the flesh, God doesn't stop being God. So when we know that in our human lived experience, that we are the life force, we are the divine life, that as the body drops, the last breath can just be the last surrender of the breath of life to the eternal life, the shining light of God, so that there's a continuation, right? There's just this openness to let go into even more fullness. It's recognized to be a graduation. Now, it's not that as that process unfolds, that there won't be surrender in the letting go, right? And what the body might have to go through in that surrender. But the more that we know the truth of who we are, there's a practiced ability to surrender, right? There's this ability to surrender and not fight, and just keep opening, transmuting. And so in a way, to the last breath, we're transmuting our human assignment. We're completing our human assignment. Now, every being will go through that in the process, but how conscious and awake that process can be, we're already in it, right? We're already in that process. So this is what this life is about. It's, it might sound really bizarre to say this life is about dying well, dying consciously. But how beautiful if we take away the taboos around death and the fear of death, and we start recognizing, oh, we're already in the process. We have no idea when any body will drop. But if we can be so conscious and awake in this possibility, and then we're sharing this, right? We're sharing this. We're here together in love, in this unfolding, right? It's not like, oh, now you're put over there, right? Now you're excluded from truth. Even more as we age and the surrender gets deeper, as certain abilities become impaired and more tricky, even more is the necessity for companionship and the presence of love and connection. Because as we open and deepen, we have this capacity to hold a bigger, wider, more present space as the body that we thought we were starts to surrender more deeply, right? So this is all about being the eternal being, being the timeless one, being life itself, and coming to a surrendered depth of recognition that we are not the body, we are not the mind, the story, or the character. And we are surrendering out of our belief in that, out of our protections, and coming to know the true essence nature, the life that does not die with the dropping of the body, the life that is eternal. And as we open to this, it brings more of a fearless living of life, right? It brings more of a fearless ability to drop the protections and be able to communicate more freely, to love more openly and deeply, right on the surface, to take risks with what the character might think is scary, to recognize that we're here to take those risks and to risk feeling the feelings that arise when things don't go the way the me wants. So to love wholeheartedly, to jump all the way in to what life is offering, to say yes, and to not be moving from the mind's creation of possible disastrous consequences that might arise, to actually say, well, whatever, if disastrous consequences arise out of this situation, then what grace for those feelings to arise, that it is by thy grace that the situation arises for consequences to be felt. Because what are consequences but karma, right? Consequences are the effect of the cause, and our unfolding here is the collapse of cause and effect, to recognize there is no cause and effect. In truth, it's all one flow of life. And so we let go of trying to calculate the risk involved, and we open to the flow of life, and life flows, and whatever happens, happens, and it's all the glory, processing itself through experiencing itself in order to meet itself through the felt sense of the nervous system feeling feelings, whether they are stress, anxiety, fear, triggers, sadness, whatever those feelings are. The grace of how consciousness experiences itself is by feeling those feelings in the nervous system and releasing the stresses that hold us bound in protection, so that we can let go into a deeper knowing of the freedom. And in that, we let go into a deeper fulfillment of the longing. And in that, we recognize, oh, the fulfillment of the longing is in presence, is in openness, is in letting go. It's in the surrender. We come to see that life itself, living itself in its fullness, is in perpetual surrender to itself. It's what keeps life alive, is the momentum of surrender into itself, that it never stagnates and holds a position, that it just keeps living, right? That's what keeps life alive, is that it keeps living by surrendering into itself. And now whatever that surrender of life into itself looks like, whether it's meeting stress in the nervous system, whether it's moving in a situation that feels scary but true, or whether it's dropping the body, it's life surrendering into life. So who could imagine that even what gets called death is actually life surrendering into life, right? How profound, how beautiful to come to this kind of recognition that the continuation is the continuation of the perpetual flow of life surrendering into itself. And so we don't have to fear anything, whether we're living this experience with body or without body. It's all life surrendering into itself, perpetually keeping itself alive through that surrender, right? So surrender is what it's all about. It is the stuff of life. It is life living itself. And it is this that creates the aliveness of the flow of life. And it is what sustains wholeness. It's why wholeness is whole and is never divided, is because it's constantly surrendering into its own wholeness. It never divides. It never fragments. It never separates. It's in perpetual surrender into its wholeness in order to keep its wholeness whole. This is the naturalness, and we are this naturalness. We are the naturalness of life surrendering into itself and never fragmenting, always whole, always pure and simple, life living itself, natural, open flow. This is what we are. And this unfolding is about discovering this in our direct experience.